Hi, I'm Peter Caldas, President and CEO of the American Society on Aging, and welcome to Season 5 of Future Proof, ASA's webcast with changemakers in aging. This season, Lisa Marsh Ryerson, President of AARP Foundation, joins us as guest host of 5 episodes exploring innovative approaches to fighting poverty with leaders in the community and how these approaches can build opportunity across generations. We're delighted to be partnering with AARP Foundation on this series as we launch a year of programming on advancing economic security and how it intersects with aging, equity, and innovation. We hope you enjoy this episode, and please join us all season long.
Hi, everyone. It's Lisa Marsh Ryerson, and I'm delighted to be joining you for my final episode as guest host on the Future Proof podcast. And this guest for our final episode, Dr. Valerie Maholmes, is so talented, and our conversation will be dynamic. And is Valerie a perfect wrap-up to this series? Dr. Mahomes has devoted her career to addressing the challenges of low-income and minority children and families. From her early work as an educator to her current role with the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development at NIH, Dr. Mahomes supports biomedical and also behavioral sciences research and calls attention to both the short and long-term psychological and health consequences of experiencing adversity early in life. Dr. Mahomes has published numerous peer-reviewed articles and book chapters, far too many, Valerie, for me to list, but I want everyone to hear about your latest book, titled Fostering Resilience and Well-Being in Children and Families in Poverty, Why Hope Still Matters, which is the topic of our conversation today. Valerie, I've been so looking forward to having you on the podcast and talking with you about all of your work and research, but in particular about this newest body of research. And I think as we begin, it will be helpful for our viewers and listeners to hear from you how you define hope. What is it? And as importantly, what is it not?
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to be here and to join this podcast. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. Hope for me, and borrowing from the positive psychology literature, is a motivational force. It's not so much the pie in the sky wishing for something to happen, but it is action-oriented. It is based on our sense of efficacy, our sense of the ability to be able to carry out goals. It is about being able to see what you can be and working toward achieving that. How you get there activates that hope and gives a sense of optimism that you can achieve it. But I look at hope as a motivational force, hope as an action-oriented entity and resource within us.
What I appreciate about your definition, and I have the benefit of reading your writing, your research and your writing about hope, is that it's powerful because you talk about it very much within a scientific research frame as a motivating force. And even with that, that's so uplifting for me because the very word hope is uplifting. But so many people have diminished the sense of hope to either say that's foolishness, it does not have an impact, right, on our lives or our ability to overcome adversity. So you're helping us understand that in fact it does, and research shows that it does. Can you talk about that a bit more? As you have worked with people, children, and also families who have experienced adverse trauma, really, and adverse life events early in their lives, or who are living in poverty currently, what are the most successful or important ways to activate hope to fight against poverty?
Yes, so one of the things that's really important is taking people where they are. And hope has aspirational aspects and elements to it. So what we want to make sure that as individuals are setting goals and are looking at where they can be and how they can change their life circumstances and make their life circumstances um, 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 more feasible for raising children and for having quality of life, we have to ensure that those aspirations are achievable and attainable. And so, what activates hope is allowing people to have a vision of where they can be. And for every individual, especially the ones that I interviewed in that book,
Yes,
hope and success is different. Where they want to be is different from what I might aspire. So for one family, hope might be just being able to have the resources to sit around the dinner table at night and have a quiet dinner with family without interruptions. And so being able to do that means that you have the wherewithal to go out and buy the groceries, to have time off on your work, to sit down with family, to have work schedules that will allow that to happen. So there's a lot integrated in that. And hope for some other families might mean something different, but people have visions of what
yes,
they want to be and how they want to be, how they want to engage in this world, and also how they want to be perceived
that's
by
right.
others in this world. And so, what gives people hope is that it's not a done deal, that where they are now is not
Doesn't
necessarily.
define the future.
That's right. And one of my favorite sayings is that how you start out is not necessarily how you end up. And many of our lives take this route of what I call the yellow brick road, follow that journey. And so for people who are struggling and for people who are trying to just meet the day-to-day expectations of life, their life is not going to be a straight path from A to B. But as long as they know what that next step is for them and they have a plan, however strong it is or however sketchy it is, but they have a plan and a vision for where they want to be, that's where we marshal our resources to help people achieve that goal.
And to activate their hope as a
To activate
strategy, right,
that.
to achieve. As you're talking with me, I'm being reminded really powerfully, Valerie, when you say meet people where they're at, that this is people first or human centric work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I think about the conversations you and I have had about my work at AARP Foundation, helping older adults who are living with low income increase their income and be able to move from surviving to thriving, you're reminding me that we have to go cautiously. In other words, to have evidence and programs, but to want to move in, say, to a community and just implement what we know may not work.
That's
Because
right.
in working with individuals, I hear you reminding me, we have to know where each person is on their journey and what's their next milestone that
That's
they're
right.
aspiring to, and how do we make adjustments to
That's right.
help them build a positive pathway. That
That's
road,
right.
the yellow
That's
brick
right.
road, what's the next brick?
That's right. What's the next brick? And for some people, it may be a more of a motivational push for them. And for some people, all they need is affirmation that yes, you can
Yes,
do this and that it can be done, and to see other people doing it, regardless of their age.
yes,
I shared with you that in addition to my work, I'm also caregiving for my 96-year-old dad, who is
amazing.
probably he's probably doing better than most of us in the sense that he is um, fully aware of what his capabilities are for the most part. He needs some support, yes, but he's somewhat independent, and he is very clear in what the future holds for him. So hope for him is being able to see his children do better than what he did.
Yes,
Hope for him is being able to get up and let his dog out and to be able to move around to go work on his old car, of course,
yes,
with assistance and with our support. And that is not, when he was in a assisted living facility and overcoming a major illness. And during that time, what they were planning for him was far afield from what he wanted for himself. He
Yes.
just wanted to be able to walk to the mailbox to go get his own mail. He wanted to be able to go outside and sit on the porch with his dog and watch his dog run around. So he didn't need all the kinds of treatments and therapies and
No.
medication that they wanted for him.
You know, and again, it goes back to being fully aware that we've got to be cautious
Yeah.
about the assumptions we make about individuals. And I'm hearing you say, be cautious about putting our definition of where someone should be, our definition about what their hope pathway is on them.
That's right. Start with where the individual is and what they have articulated. And for some people, especially for older adults, you may have to help them with that articulation, depending on their, cognitive ability and whatever other issues may be at play at the moment. But for the most part, people who come to us with this rich life, this rich history, longevity, folks who have raised children and have helped to raise their grandchildren, most have a vision of what they want to see. They want to see their children thrive. Sometimes their
Yes,
goals are not as much for them as it is for the generation coming behind them
that's right. Or their neighbors or
or
their
their
community.
neighbors.
I have to say that in your generous sharing about your dad, who is an inspiration, and I haven't met him yet, but I'm getting to know him a bit through talking with you. But also a thank you to you. You're joining the what, about 48 million family caregivers in our nation, and you're juggling your really impressive and important portfolio of work while being a family caregiver. I also think you've activated for me that our hope, sometimes that inspiration or motivation from us, can come from those interactions we have with older
Yes,
adults in our lives. And I
yes,
bet your dad continues to give hope, not just to you. I know he does, to
yeah.
others in his life as well. Valerie, talk about in the work that you've done with underserved families and children. And of course, that involves living lives within community, tapping into a variety of resources and organizations. How do organizations and community use hope as an inspiration or maybe more a strategy to be sure that they really are assisting individuals in meaningful ways?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It is a strategy. So again, starting with where that individual is, and I uh, like to use the Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a starting point, but I've kind of
Great.
modified that a little bit. You always want to start with people's basic needs, and sometimes in organizations, they have milestones that they have to meet. They have to report to their funders and things of that nature. And so they're looking to be able to show
Get to that
deliverables,
impact.
yeah, to the impact and the outcome statement. But the hierarchy starts with people's basic needs. Let's see if we can organize programming around meeting the basic needs of individuals. So for families, especially where there are older adults and there may or may not be a network of support around them, what are some of those basic needs that they might have for food and shelter and clothing and appropriate housing? Those fundamental things mean the world. And what that does is free up their cognitive energy, their psychological energy to kind of focus on other things. So if I don't have to worry about what I'm going to eat today or who's going to come and make sure that I'm well and that I'm not going to be at risk of falling, or
Yes.
in the case of families with a lot of children, who's going to make sure that my kids aren't neglected and helping me to have meals available for those children. Those are some of the important basic needs. And from there, people have a need for psychological well-being and for belonging. People want to be a
Yes.
part of something. They want to belong. One of the things that my dad and I often talk about is that he commiserates about the fact that he's the elder in the family now, and that his college roommate, who was 97, just
Ah,
recently passed away.
oh,
And he's the oldest, but his younger
Sorry to hear that, but it sounds like your dad he's lost his friends of his era. Does
That's
not mean he
right.
doesn't have intergenerational friendships.
That's exactly right. And so he's very aware of where he is in life. So what gives him hope, and with other families that we work with, is being able to talk about all of those things that have gotten him to the point to where he is. Uh, Having him share his service and time in the military, having him share what his experience was like as a co-ed in college, having him talk about being a young family man and raising his children and all of the challenges that he experienced and all the things that led up to where he is today. So we take that uh, um, situation and station in
Yes.
life that could be something that might give rise to feelings of depression and all of that.
Anxiety.
Yeah, we turn it around. And so for organizations that are working with families that are dealing with a host of challenges, look at where we can take that certain situation, that context, and see if we can find the contributions that they have made to their family, to their community, to their church, to their society, and use that as a point of encouragement and as a point of strategy, as you say, for if you have done that once before, you can do it again. You might need more help. You might need more resources. You might not be able to do that on your own now. But these are things that you can still do. And what my dad does is, in sharing his stories, he's encouraging young people who may not have grown up with a father, and certainly who may not have someone at 96 in their family. A lot of young people have not had the opportunity to experience, being with an octogenarian or
and the power of that dialogue and true intergenerational connection, because as a society we separate generations and older from younger, as opposed to that co-living in community.
That's right.
We often do.
So those relationships and that network, yes, it'll be different because the people of your era may or may not be with you. It may be different, but building a network of resources and support for families is crucial. It's really important. So that, first of all, someone will know that what I'm going through, someone else has gone through. They have been successful, so I can be successful. I am going to follow in the footsteps of XYZ individual because I see that what they did worked for them. And sometimes that's really helpful to have those models available and those quote unquote mentors available. So mentoring and the social network is different as families age and as individuals in families age. But it's really important for people to be surrounded by folks who are locked in a conspiracy to help them achieve well-being. That's whatever that means for them.
And to tap into their resilience. Again, as our conversation unfolds, I'm continually hearing you talk about helping people, recognizing that the first step is securing the essentials.
Yes.
Which is really the work that we do. And then you're building up a base so that individuals can move on to the next goals.
That's right.
Creating those intergenerational connections that help provide stories at different times across a life course. And as you're saying, models and reminders that individuals have their own agency and likely have been very resilient at other times in their life, though they may be at this point, for us, for example, lost a job after 50. And the challenge of feeling, I can't get back in there. But as you said, remind them, you had your job. And let's just figure out the next brick in that pathway forward.
That's exactly right. And, one of the things I think is really important is to be able to connect individuals with organizations of people that can provide that kind of a resource, and the support groups. I am participating in a support group now, which is really helpful for me. I had always been resistant to those kinds of things. I do this already in my day job. I don't need that. But just being able to hear the stories and hear what people are doing, the solutions and the strategies, and getting information is really important.
Is that a caregiving group?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a care
really
group.
important, Valerie, you're right. And important for us, because for listeners, I think often we're in a field and we think, I should know this.
That's right.
But it's when it's your life, your loved one, and your daily experience.
Right. Everything becomes this big blob of confusion. And so sometimes being in these groups help ground you, and I am always impressed when I am listening to these stories and people who are 50, 60, and 70 starting their careers again. So maybe you can't do what you did, when you were younger and earlier in your career. But as times are changing, even this pandemic is giving us opportunity to be entrepreneurial, even at this at later stages in life, and figuring out what you can do. My grandmother lived to be in her 90s, but she crocheted. And so she used to like to sit and look out the window and crochet. And what she started to do was just to make these coasters and hats and things that she could give
see that
away.
as an Etsy shop.
Yeah. And she would give them away to young people. And she would sometimes use her crochet to barter for services.
Yes.
I'll give you this, and sometimes people would bring her food or just come and have a conversation with her.
So she had a social network and a skill that really could help her meet her needs. I have to say, you are an inspirational leader, a scientist, a leader, a thinker. Your book is so compelling, Valerie, and really challenged my thinking about the power of hope. And especially in these times, so many grandparents who are raising grandchildren, so many low-income older adults who've lost their work and need to continue to work. And because of you, I am much clearer as the president at AARP Foundation of the power of hope as a strategy.
That's right.
To help vulnerable older adults secure the essentials in their lives.
Absolutely.
So I will be thinking about you and employing and deploying your wisdom as we go about building our programs on behalf of older adults who are living with low income. I know everyone joins me, and just a huge thank you to Dr. Valerie Maholmes. We could go on forever, Valerie, but thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining me, your guest host for this last episode of the Future Proof series 5th season. We started together this season with an episode titled, Is Poverty Solvable? And these conversations have made it clear that poverty is solvable, but we have to dig in and we have to be laser focused on solutions that meet the needs of individuals and of communities. Each sector, each community, every person plays a role in solving poverty. Thanks for joining me.